A NoMoreStickyMonkeys.com production. The top 10 movies of 2010. Boy, was 2010 a piss poor year at the movies. I'm a film lover who usually goes to about 3 or 4 movies a month. But this past year, week after week would go by and I'd see nothing I wanted to see. Some months, well, sometimes I'd be excited about a particular film and I'd see it and then be left wanting. My friend Harry blames the writer's strike from a few years ago, but I think it's just a cyclical thing. Something like this happened in the mid-'80s too. However, there were a few good films that snuck through earlier in the year and a few great ones towards the end. Here is my 7th annual list, starting as always with the honorable mentions. The Kids are alright. Now it has nothing to do with The Who. Big budget Hollywood movies rely on action to excite the audience. Independent filmmakers, though, they have a much smaller budget and rely on adultery to push their audience's buttons. A cool concept of a film about a lesbian couple meeting their kid's sperm donor father goes in an odd direction when they have the father have an affair with the more feminine of the couple. With all the story ideas they could have come up with, this seems like the least likely and a convenient way to bash the man. 127 Hours. James Franco does his best acting job here by a long mile. As an amateur thrill seeker who gets his arm caught in a cave in the Utah desert, this movie becomes a tour de force for Franco. He doesn't drop the ball at all, but the claustrophobic atmosphere of the film, obviously needs, also makes it seem much longer than its 90-minute length. While the cutting off of the arm is difficult to watch, it's the breaking of the arm that was really hard for me. Black Swan. The acting in this film is all around superb. Natalie Portman's turn as a New York ballerina going through a mother of a nervous breakdown is an unsettling success. But just as good are Winona Ryder as the former prima ballerina, Barbara Hershey as a lovingly cruel stage mother, and Mila Kunis as Portman's rival/imaginary friend, the fighter. Mark Wahlberg gets overshadowed by Christian Bale as 2 boxing brothers from Lowell, Massachusetts. Bale gets the showier part as a crack addict, but Wahlberg often just stands or sits there while the movie goes on around him. Director David O. Russell pulls back the reins on his usual idiosyncratic style of filmmaking. Red. This action-adventure film, well, actually, several action-adventure films in the past year were often painful and mostly forgettable, but Red stood out, not because of its stellar cast, which included about 4 Oscar winners, but because it made its action and story lighthearted without eliminating their exciting potential. Watching Dame Helen Mirren try to blow up the Vice President's car with a machine gun is both funny and incredibly cool. I look forward to Red 2 if there is one. Kick-Ass. Speaking of great action movies that don't take themselves too seriously, Kick-Ass was another film based on a comic book that pushed the envelope. Little Chloe Moretz as Hit Girl was a foul-mouthed wonder, an 11-year-old who used words and moves of a 25-year-old. The Secret in Their Eyes, an Argentinian movie that won Best Foreign Film for 2009. I caught up with it this summer and was very impressed. An unresolved murder mystery from 25 years ago still haunts a retired detective, and he writes a novel to try and make sense of it. The ending is so unexpected that it will blow you away. And how many times can you say that about a Hollywood movie? Joan Rivers, a piece of work. Growing up, I always thought Joan Rivers was funny. Then she got to host the Tonight Show on a regular basis, and I became a huge fan. When that gig ended and she got her own show, I became less of a fan. I gave up on her altogether with all her surgery and home shopping network nonsense. But this movie goes back to her core comedy, and the woman at 75 can still kill on stage. In fact, her only unfunny moments come when she's around her daughter Melissa. You take Melissa out of the picture, and you have a very funny woman. Hot Tub Time Machine. In a year without a lot of original laughs, this has to be considered the funniest movie of the year. John Cusack and his buddies take a soak in a magical hot tub and are transported back to 1986. The writers get most of the references right on the button, and this poor man's hangover gets the job thanks largely to The Daily Show's Rob Corddry. He's the crude, funny, amazing, crunchy center to this candy bar of a film. Edge of Darkness. Mel Gibson made a tremendous comeback to acting with this remake of a BBC miniseries. course, he ruined it all with those threats he made to his girlfriend on tape a few months later. But watch this one for an exciting ride. After Mel's daughter is killed in his own home, Washington detective Thomas Craven goes on a quest to find and punish the killers. What could have been a standard issue Steven Seagal movie gets more polish with a great nuclear energy plotline. And I particularly liked when they showed how short Mel was compared to his co-stars. It made their fear of him and his crazy side even more enjoyable. Now for the top 10. Number 10 is Legends of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole. Zack Snyder follows his own muse, that's for sure. He did a great remake of Dawn of the Dead, brought us a new cinema world with 300, and filmed what many considered the unfilmable Watchmen with great success. Now he tries his hand at computer animation and makes one of the best films of the year with The Owls of Ga'Hoole. It's genuinely scary and exciting, and I loved how they used the amazing variety of owls from Australia to tell this story of being brave and growing up. Number 9, Get Low. Robert Duvall is an old hermit in the 1930s looking to have a funeral before he dies so he can explain himself to the world. Bill Murray is the former used car salesman who is now a money-hungry funeral director. And Lucas Black is Murray's assistant and the eventual son-type figure for the ever-lonely Duvall. What horrible thing did Duvall's Felix Bush do to make him hide away from the world like this? As you peel away the onion layers of this story, you find the answer is not as important as the wonderful way they get you there. It's both funny and strong, and easily Bill Murray's best work in years. Number 8, Ghost Rider, not to be confused with the Nicolas Cage movie. Obi-Wan Kenobi's Ewan McGregor is a ghostwriter, a man who hires himself out to big shots to write their autobiographies. In this case, he'll write the memoirs of a Tony Blair-style former British Prime Minister, played by Pierce Brosnan. Except the last Ghost Rider was found washed up on the shore of the Prime Minister's island home. Was he killed? And will McGregor see the same fate? Number 7, The Town. Ben Affleck has finally found himself. Few filmmakers know what to do with his talents, so now he blows them off and writes and directs his own movies. The Town could be compared to Heat, but has enough of its own energy, mixing in the politics of Boston's gangs, and a great supporting performance by Hurt Locker's Jeremy Renner. Number 6, Inception. When this movie came out this summer, I thought it was the best of the year. I still consider it the most original, but certain aspects of it didn't make sense, and I get the feeling that writer-director Christopher Nolan didn't figure it all out either. But his visuals and concepts are amazing. Number 5, True Grit. Haley Steinfeld should win Best Actress for her role as Maddie Ross. Unfortunately, she will probably be nominated for a supporting role, even though the movie is about her and her relationship with Rooster Cogburn. But whatever. There are 3 wonderful screenplays this year, and this is one of them. I appreciate the Coen brothers, but do not love them the way the others do. But this remake is definitely one of my favorites from the team. Number 4, Toy Story 3. This series just keeps getting better with each film. I love the whole thing. The scene where the toys are about to go into the fire is the scariest and saddest thing I've ever seen in an animated film. The filmmakers convinced me. I said to myself, is this really how it's going to end? Number 3, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. In many ways, this is my favorite movie of the year because it stirred me up in ways no other film did. This Swedish classic stars Noomi Rapace as Lisbeth Salander, who was one of the toughest female characters ever. Way more cool than Ripley in the Alien films because Elizabeth is realistic. A young punk rock lesbian who has been screwed around by the system since she was a little girl and has to face this world on her own when the authorities violate her. The only person she can rely on is a stranger, a magazine reporter who takes a special interest in her, and an unsolved murder from 40 years ago. Is there a connection? Number 2, The King's Speech. 3 movies in the last few years have done more to humanize the British royal family than any before them. The Queen, Young Victoria, and now The King's Speech. Excuse me. Colin Firth does a great job playing the eventual King George VI, who's Queen Elizabeth's father, who suffers from a terrible stammer and has to be strong and speak to his country via the new sensation of radio. Fortunately, he gets major help from an unorthodox Australian speech therapist named Lionel Logue. That's Pirates of the Caribbean's Geoffrey Rush is the true star of the film as Logue, but everyone else in the cast shines. The script is witty and brilliant. And number 1 is The Social Network. Aaron Sorkin, who is one of the best writers in Hollywood and has been since his first film, A Few Good Men, writes The Social Network, and it's his masterpiece. A totally dialogue-driven movie about computer nerds, and his script makes it as exciting as any action movie. Add in David Fincher's brilliant direction, jumping back and forth between scenes, and by the end of the movie, you are so deeply into the film, you realize you forgot to eat your nachos. So enjoy all these cinematic treats from the Freditor.